car driving home, I said, Mom, you won't believe what happened to me.
Have you ever wondered how Hollywood hides its darkest secrets? From cover-ups of sexual assault to mysterious deaths, get ready as we uncover 20 shocking scandals that Hollywood wants you to forget.
You're a very bad man.
Number 20. Judy Garland's abuse. While the abuse of child stars in the industry is well documented, few cases are as heartbreaking as Judy Garland's. Thrust into the limelight even before she became a teenager, her tragic journey from child star to Hollywood icon was marred by harrowing abuse, unlike any other. Signed at the age of 11 by MGM's Louis B. Mayer, what would have been a dream come true for the young actress instantly became a nightmare of relentless emotional and physical torment. Words can't even do it justice. It all began when Louis B. Mayer spotted Garland singing with her sisters. Intrigued enough to want her at all costs, he managed to coerce her father with financial temptations. During sets, he made sure she was under 24-hour surveillance and worked long hours, often through illness and exhaustion. For the latter, he made her take amphetamines to maintain her energy during long days of filming and barbiturates to help her sleep. To make things worse, Mayer personally kept reminding Judy of how fat she was becoming. He wanted her to be a mindless doll and skinny, to the point where you'd consider if she was anorexic. If she broke the diet code, she was threatened with immediate dismissal from the MGM roster. And then came the worst offense, sexual abuse. According to multiple reports, studio boss Louis B. Mayer made a habit of complimenting Garland's voice. Wait for it, by putting his hand on her left breast and pretending to touch her heart. And he wasn't the only one. An unnamed executive at the studio once summoned her to his office, demanding sex. When she refused, he yelled at her saying, "I'll ruin you and break you if that's the last thing I do." Sadly, her abuse, concealed by glamour, epitomizes the exploitation in show business, where children like Judy suffer under oppressive systems that often go unpunished. Just like MGM, studios use their public relations machinery to create a contradictory public persona. They glamorize stars, presenting them as cheerful and beautiful, while secretly bullying them to keep their abuse a secret. Speaking of secrets, here's another clandestine chapter from Hollywood's history books. Number 19. The story of Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato. Believe it when I tell you that the golden age of Hollywood had everything. From iconic acting to breathtaking scandals, there was never a dull moment. So when you hear the tumultuous relationship between Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato epitomizes the dark underbelly of Hollywood's golden era, a blend of glamour, scandal, and ultimately fatal violence, you just know you're in for a wild ride. Beginning in 1957, the once juicy union turned sour when Stompanato's reported abuse and possessiveness led to intense arguments and disturbing incidents, and it made the headlines. Adding to the intrigue, Turner never really broke free from the relationship. A case of Stockholm Syndrome, you wonder? I don't know. In any case, the relationship came to a shocking end, and no, it wasn't because of a breakup. On April 4th, 1958, the world of Hollywood was stunned. In what must have been a heated altercation between the lovebirds, Cheryl Crane, Turner's 14-year-old daughter, intervened with a kitchen knife, fatally stabbing Stompanato. As you'd expect, Hollywood's machinery swiftly moved to manage the fallout, with studio executives and PR teams attempting to shape public perception. Despite the fact that Crane claimed she was only defending her mother, the public response remained divisive. Many outlets criticized Turner, alleging her testimony was a performance. Though Crane was exonerated of any wrongdoing, Stompanato's ex-wife filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Turner and Crane, seeking $750,000 in damages. The lawsuit was eventually settled out of court in 1962 for a sum of $20,000. Stompanato's homicide has been the subject of conspiracy theories, suggesting Turner herself stabbed him, with Crane taking the blame to protect her mother. Although Crane has consistently denied these claims, it sure makes one heck of a story. Number 18. Charlie Chaplin's questionable lifestyle. Believe it or not, some of Hollywood's best-kept secrets don't always involve abuse. Sometimes, it's all about the surprising double lives of even the most celebrated stars. Enter Charlie Chaplin, one of the most iconic actors in cinematic history, whose charming persona captured hearts worldwide. Loved for his slapstick comedy, many never cared to know what went on behind the scenes. Although no birth certificate for the British film icon has ever been found, it's generally accepted that he was born on April 16, 1889, right? Well, here's where things get dicey. Born into poverty in South London to an absent father and a mother suffering from mental illness, Charlie Chaplin had all the ingredients for a classic rags to riches tale. Few could have imagined that he would become one of the most renowned figures globally by the age of 26. With his status, affluence, and substantial Hollywood salary, the actor claimed to have slept with 2,000 women during his lifetime, including teenagers, minors by contemporary standards. Take, for instance, his troubled marriage with Mildred Harris when she was just 16 and he was 29. After a messy divorce, Chaplin went even lower. He met 12-year-old Lolita McMurray, who would later become his wife. Okay, fine, he waited until she was 16 before making a move. But hey, what's up with that? He even got her pregnant out of wedlock before marrying her. Plus, when he was 54, he married the 18-year-old daughter Oona, daughter of the Irish playwright Eugene O'Neill. Legal? Yes, but again, I can't help but feel something's not quite right. Number 17. Fatty Arbuckles Trials. You didn't think I was going to leave out the scandal of Roscoe Arbuckle, did you? Infamously hailed as the first major scandal in the American film industry, nothing could have prepared Tinseltown for the reverberating repercussions of the trial. But let's go back to where it all began. September 1921, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle's life took a tragic turn amid a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. Virginia Rapp, an aspiring actress, fell seriously ill in Arbuckle's room. But while the diagnosis was intoxication at first, her condition worsened, leading to her death from peritonitis days later. Rumors and accusations swirled, with Rapp's companion, Bambina Maud Delmont, accusing Arbuckle of rape. And despite medical findings of no evidence of assault, Arbuckle was arrested for murder and manslaughter. However, the damage to Arbuckle's reputation was irreparable. The scandal had far-reaching implications, triggering moral panic in Hollywood and contributing to the establishment of the Hays Code, a moral guideline for the film industry. Worse, even after being acquitted after the third hearing, his career never recovered. He spent most of what he had to defend his innocence and had to change his name to William B. Goodrich while working behind the scenes and directing films for friends who remained loyal to him. He died at the age of 46 after a heart attack in his hotel room. Arbuckle's case remained a tragic reminder of the power of media sensationalism and the devastating consequences of public scrutiny in early Hollywood. His acquittal came too late to restore his reputation, underscoring the enduring impact of a moment that forever changed both his life and the entertainment industry. But hey, if you thought that was crazy, wait until you see what we've got next.
Hey, you look good. That's some dress you got on there.
What? This old thing? Well, I only wear it when I don't care how I look.
Number 16. Gloria Graham's Taboo Affair. In 1962, Hollywood was rocked by a shocking scandal unlike any other. Gloria Graham, the Oscar winner and the proverbial femme fatale Oscar winner, was the go-to actress for roles that explored sensuality. She was at the peak of her powers and loved by all, until a particularly scandalous affair led to her fall from grace. Born in California in 1923, Gloria was the youngest daughter of British stage actress Jean Hallward, who nurtured her for greater success. By the time she turned 20, MGM had signed Gloria to a 7-year contract and instructed her to use her mother's maiden name. She gained recognition in her second film, in 1946's It's a Wonderful Life, starring alongside Jane Stewart as the flirtatious Violet, and received an Oscar nomination for Crossfire the following year. Alas, underneath her undoubted success lay a tumultuous personal life. In 1946, Gloria filed for divorce from her first husband, actor Stanley Clements, after less than a year of marriage. During their separation, they attempted reconciliation but ultimately decided to part ways again. In 1948, Gloria filed for an annulment, citing physical abuse by Stanley. In 1946, Gloria filed for divorce from her first husband, actor Stanley Clements, got back together, and filed for an annulment again in 1948, citing that Stanley was physically abusive. But before the papers were signed, their tumultuous relationship took a darker turn when Nicholas walked in on Gloria in bed with his son, Tony. Guess what? He was only 13. I mean, yeah, the marriage was already headed for a divorce, but who would imagine that she would do something so insane? So as you can imagine, the actress faced significant backlash when the public learned about her affair with Tony, who was notably a minor. But instead of seeking forgiveness and being remorseful, Gloria boldly defended herself, claiming that people were overreacting. There was no turning back from that point. While she continued to work in films, her personal life overshadowed her professional accomplishments, forever altering her public perception. She never recovered from the onslaught, and rightfully so. Take a minute to brace yourself for the next Hollywood nightmare. Its story and aftermath feel like a blockbuster horror. Number 15. The Black Dahlia Murder. There's a reason why the 1947 murder of Elizabeth Short, also known as the Black Dahlia, remains one of the most intriguing cold cases in the country to this day. Not only was it a horrific crime linked to Hollywood, but also its enigma has been proven difficult to solve. Discovered in a vacant lot in Lamart Park, Elizabeth's body was bisected at the waist, drained of blood, and with lacerations creating a haunting smile across her face. Her stomach was full of feces, leading some to believe that she'd been forced to eat them before she was killed. In short, the scene was so horrific that initial witnesses mistook her for a mannequin. At just 22 years old, Elizabeth's life was way ahead of her. Plus, she was a dreamer, a girl who inspired to make it to Hollywood. But as famous as the case was, authorities were never able to figure out who was behind it. At its peak, the LAPD had 750 investigators to the case and interviewed over 1,500 potential suspects connected to the Black Dahlia murder. Initially, officers received over 60 confessions, none of which were deemed credible. Over time, more than 500 additional confessions have been made, yet none have resulted in any charges being filed. Over time, as the case grew colder, many speculated that the Black Dahlia murder could have been the result of a date gone wrong, or that Elizabeth had encountered a sinister stranger while walking alone late at night, theories that are nothing more than conspiracies in the grand scheme of things. While the identity of the Black Dahlia's killer remains uncertain, we can only hope the truth comes out one day, hopefully soon.
Didn't expect me here after Vienna?
Well, I didn't expect you in Vienna after Cairo. Since you are here, we might as well take up where we left off.
Number 14. Hedy Lamar's kleptomania. Hedy Lamar, once celebrated as the epitome of Hollywood glamour and beauty during the 1940s and 1950s, led a life that intertwined fame with innovation. Beyond her captivating beauty and enigmatic screen presence, Lamar made significant contributions to technology, co-inventing a radio guidance system during World War II that laid the groundwork for modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth technologies. Yes, without her, modern Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technology may be decades behind, if it became a thing at all. However, beneath the veneer of her illustrious career and notable achievements, Lamar faced recurring legal troubles in the 1960s, stemming from multiple arrests for shoplifting. The most notable incident involved an accusation of stealing $86 worth of goods from a department store in Los Angeles. And that wasn't the only case. Subsequent arrests followed over the years for similar charges, each bringing her unwanted notoriety. In 1991, for instance, she faced the same charge in Florida, this time for stealing $21.48 worth of laxatives and eye drops. She pleaded no contest to avoid a court appearance, and the charges were later dropped on the condition that she refrained from breaking any laws for a year. But of course, the industry couldn't stand by with their hands folded. Keen to preserve the pristine image of its star, the industry made several attempts to downplay media coverage of Lamar's legal issues. To be fair, it wasn't uncommon. Over the years, Hollywood has notoriously covered up the bad side of its stars, especially those who were molded to be perfect and graceful. Speaking of grace, up next is none other than the diva herself.
We had a daughter. Wouldn't you rather she didn't marry a poor man?
But I was...
You'd want her to have the most wonderful things in the world and to be very happy. Oh, why is it wrong for me to want those?
Number 13. The death of Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen, remains one of the most enduring icons of Hollywood's golden age to this day. Celebrated for her captivating beauty, blonde bombshell status, and talent and charisma on screen, only a few can match the elegance of Miss Monroe. Rising to fame in the 1950s, Monroe became synonymous with the silver screen, starring in iconic roles such as Sugar Cane in Some Like It Hot and Lorelei Lee in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Her breathy voice, sultry allure, and comedic timing endeared her to audiences worldwide, making her a beloved figure in both cinema and popular culture. However, Monroe's tragic death in 1962 sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Monroe was found deceased in her Los Angeles home on August 5th. She was discovered lying nude on her bed, clutching a telephone, with empty pill bottles strewn nearby. The official cause of death was determined to be an overdose of barbiturates, ruled probable suicide by the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. Yet, it is the circumstances surrounding Monroe's death that have perpetuated intrigue and speculation over the years. To start with, the deputy medical examiner who performed the autopsy found no barbiturate residue in the stomach of the 36-year-old movie star. This can only mean Monroe never ingested barbiturates orally. To this day, many believe she was either killed for her connections to President John F. Kennedy, or that she may have possessed sensitive information that posed a threat to powerful interests. Adding to the intrigue, Monroe's FBI file, discovered 50 years after her death, indicated that the federal authorities were well aware of the theories, suggesting that the actress was murdered but willfully chose not to indicate any investigation into these claims. The FBI file also disclosed that the Bureau had an interest in Monroe's political views and described her as positively and concisely leftist. But what do you think? Could Marilyn Monroe have died of an accidental overdose, a possible suicide, or hey, a murder that has been left unsolved? While you're pondering on your answer, look who we've got next.
The girl was having a dirty little affair with a married man. You're a vile son!
Number 12. Davand Law. Olivia de Havilland, known for her early fame in Alice in Wonderland and memorable roles like Melanie Hamilton in Gone with the Wind, never found her journey in Tinseltown to be a walk in the park. No sir, she faced and pioneered a pivotal moment in Hollywood's history when she challenged the industry's restrictive studio system. You see, during the golden age of Hollywood, major film studios exerted an extraordinary level of control over actors' careers through long-term contracts that often spanned 7 years or more. These contracts were designed to maximize studio profits by ensuring a steady stream of films featuring their contracted stars. However, they also severely restricted the actors' autonomy and creative freedom in several ways, including limited career growth and opportunities, the risk of being blacklisted, and control over their public image. After signing with Warner Brothers in 1935, she grew frustrated with being typecast in shallow roles labeled the girl, prompting her to defy the studio's control by rejecting assigned parts, an audacious move in an era when actors were expected to comply without question. In response, Warner Brothers suspended de Havilland without pay, aiming to squash her rebellion and set her up as an example for other stars. This harsh action not only deprived her of income and status, but it also cast her as a pariah within the industry. Undeterred, she waged a legal battle against the studio, enduring years of professional exile and attempts to tarnish her reputation as difficult. Her perseverance bore fruit in 1943 with the establishment of Labor Code Section 2855, known as the de Havilland Law. This landmark legislation curtailed the studio's power by limiting long-term contracts and granting actors the freedom to choose their roles and negotiate terms, an important step toward dismantling Hollywood's oppressive practices. Believe it or not, de Havilland's story is just one example of Hollywood's efforts to suppress or hide inconvenient truths about its treatment of talent. It illustrates the industry's reluctance to acknowledge and address its historical shortcomings in favor of maintaining a glossy facade for public consumption. Now let's dive even deeper into the theme of hidden scandals and suppressed narratives in Hollywood, revealing another shocking episode that has been obscured from public view for decades. Number 11. The death of George Reeves. Ah yes, George Reeves, the beloved actor who brought Superman to life on television screens across America. Remember how he met his tragic end in 1959? Officially ruled suicide, a series of suspicious events surrounding his demise, including links to the mafia, make it one of Hollywood's enduring mysteries. Alright, so not a lot of people, especially fans born outside of the era, know that Reeves was in an affair with actress Toni Mannix. Yes, the Mannix, as in Eddie Mannix, then the general manager of MGM, who was rumored to have connections to the mob. So yeah, Toni was actually his wife. As surprising as it sounds, Eddie had no issues with the fling. After all, he wasn't the most faithful guy on the planet. So maybe we can chalk off retaliation from a possible murder story. But what about his relationship with Lenore Lemon? You see, Reeves fell in love with her and even broke things off with Toni because of it. And for a while, everything was rosy, until Lemon discovered that the Superman star wasn't as rich as she expected. On the night of Reeves' death, the actor and Lemon had gone out for a drink. They returned home later with Reeves going to bed shortly after. However, Lemon continued the party with writer Robert Condon, who was staying with them, and 2 other friends. The party became loud, leading Reeves to confront them in anger, but here's where the crazy twist happens. After Reeves returned to his room, Lemon eerily commented to her friends that he was going upstairs to shoot himself. Moments later, they heard a drawer open, with Lemon claiming he was retrieving a gun. Shortly thereafter, a single gunshot was heard, with Lemon affirming he had shot himself. And guess what? The police weren't even called for 45 minutes. Lemon claimed it was a joke, and the authorities declared it a suicide. But again, I can't help but wonder, if there was no foul play, why were there conflicting testimonies and an absence of fingerprints on the gun? Worse, there were even bruises on his head and body. Keen to protect its lucrative Superman franchise, the industry controlled the narrative surrounding Reeves' death and nudged the media to focus on Reeves' personal challenges. Were they hiding some murky details? I don't know. One thing is for sure, though. Reeves' death remains one of the most mysterious incidents in Hollywood. Number 10. The insane feud of Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. Hollywood is a town with 1,000 stars and an ego to match. But what happens when the sky becomes too small for everyone? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Enter Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, two stars and actresses, two beautiful women. Although both of these women were extraordinarily talented actors, they were well known for their similarities. They were both allegedly difficult to work with, were sassy, acted similarly, and equally hated each other. But why? Well, it all began with a minor incident. Crawford's divorce from her first husband coincided with the release of Davis's debut film, causing it to underperform due to reduced publicity. Although not intentional on Crawford's part, Davis harbored lasting resentment towards her. A few years later, Crawford married Frank Atone, who Davis admired. It was World War II all over again. Despite Crawford's attempts to reconcile when they shared dressing rooms, Davis vehemently refused, leading both actresses to frequently criticize each other behind closed doors. By the 1960s, both actors were in dire need of a hit, leading to an unusual twist of fate. They starred together in their sole film, the 1963 horror movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which marked the pinnacle of their infamous feud. When Davis agreed to the film, where she played Jane, tormenting her wheelchair-bound sister Blanche, she set two conditions. She would portray Jane, and Crawford would not be romantically involved with the director. These terms were met, but tensions quickly escalated on set. The actresses argued incessantly, frequently calling Robert Aldrich to complain about each other. Davis allegedly disparaged Crawford with derogatory language, often within earshot of her co-star. While the enmity thankfully never led to physical abuse and violence, it's one of those tales Hollywood would rather you forget. After all, how dare two of the foremost ladies in their era loathe each other because of a man? The next scandal, though, totally malignant.
I felt that there should be something built, some kind of an amusement enterprise built where that the parents and the children could...
Number 9. Is Walt Disney a racist? For years, Walt Disney and his animated world have been synonymous with childhood wonder and imagination, inspiring generations of children to dream big. His creations, from Mickey Mouse to Disneyland, have left an indelible mark on entertainment and culture worldwide. Millions troop in their numbers to the latter annually, and it's a tradition that probably won't stop anytime soon. However, beneath this legacy lies a cloud of suspicion. Was Walt Disney racist? The question has lingered for decades, fueled by troubling depictions of racial stereotypes in some of his early films. Characters like the Black Crows in Dumbo, the Black Servant Centaurette in Fantasia, and the controversial film Song of the South have drawn criticism for perpetuating harmful racial stereotypes. Moreover, allegations against Disney himself add weight to these concerns. Reports cite instances where Disney used racially insensitive language, such as referring to the dwarves in Snow White as a nigger pile and using the term pickaninny. And guess what? The controversy goes beyond Disney films to employment practices at Disneyland, where accusations of racial discrimination have surfaced over the years. While it's crucial to acknowledge Disney's contributions to entertainment and his efforts to navigate the complexities of racial issues, the lingering questions about his attitudes and actions towards race cast a shadow over his legacy. And speaking of shadows clouding his legacy, you're probably not going to believe what's next. Number 8. Walt Disney's clandestine meeting. Just as if the allegations of being racist weren't enough, did you know Walt Disney once had a particularly clandestine meeting with Nazis? In 1938, during a pivotal moment in history when tensions with Nazi Germany were escalating, Disney met with Leni Riefenstahl, a prominent German filmmaker known for her propagandist works glorifying the Nazi regime, including Triumph of the Will. At the time of her visit to Hollywood, the aftermath of the Night of Broken Glass had shocked the world, marking a significant escalation of violence against Jews in Nazi Germany. Despite widespread disapproval from many prominent figures in the industry, particularly those of Jewish descent, Disney chose to give Riefenstahl a tour of his studio. Wondering how the industry reacted? For starters, Hollywood, especially given its significant Jewish influence and talent, was deeply sensitive to any associations with Nazi sympathizers. So of course, it was wary of compromising its stance against Nazi ideologies, even as the United States had not yet entered World War II. Disney's meeting with Riefenstahl had to be kept obscured from public view for decades. Public perception was and remains crucial to the industry, and they didn't want anything to tarnish it, especially from someone so respected. Now, I'm not saying Walt Disney was in fact a Nazi sympathizer or that the meeting involved anything political, but having a questionable figure, especially when rumors about him being anti-Semite were rife, it's difficult for the situation not to rub you the wrong way. Let's proceed to more Hollywood drama.
Trying to get the vote for women. I am out to emancipate them from the drudgery of being either servants or saints. Out of the laundry rooms and off the pedestals!
Number 7. The death of Natalie Wood. We've covered a couple of mystery deaths so far, but hey, as far as they come, nothing really matches up to the case of Natalie Wood. By the age of 25, she had been nominated for 3 Academy Awards for Best Actress for her roles in iconic films like Rebel Without a Cause, Splendor in the Glass, and Love with a Proper Stranger. Yet despite her stellar career, it is her tragic end that continues to dominate discussions about her legacy. Today, a quick search yields millions of results focused not on her cinematic accomplishments, but rather on the circumstances surrounding her death. But why exactly? In 1981, during a weekend getaway to Santa Catalina Island aboard the yacht Splendor, Natalie Wood drowned under mysterious circumstances. Alongside were her husband, Robert Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain, Dennis Davern, who all survived. At first, the authorities summed up her death as an accidental drowning, but when conflicting accounts and suspicious details made headlines, best believe lots of questions arose. Natalie was said to have accidentally fallen into the water while trying to board a dinghy while wearing a life jacket. However, subsequent revelations, including from Dennis Davern, the yacht's captain, hinted at a more tumultuous scenario. Before her disappearance, the couple were involved in a heated argument with witnesses also confirming it. Plus, Natalie Wood's autopsy revealed bruises and abrasions, indicating possible physical altercations before her death, although they could have been gotten while struggling for survival. It's sad to say this, but throughout her life, Natalie Wood suffered. From exploitation in Hollywood to her drowning, the circumstances and unanswered questions surrounding her death continue to intrigue and haunt those captivated by the enigma of Natalie Wood's final hours. Number 6. Clara B. Clara B, the effervescent star of Hollywood's silent film era, was more than just an actress. She was an icon. With her vivacious personality and magnetic presence on screen, B embodied the spirit of the roaring 20s like no other. Her breakthrough role in It catapulted her to stardom and earned her the enduring title of the It Girl, a symbol of modernity and independence during a transformative era in American history. Viewers couldn't get enough of B, her infectious charm, and her natural talent, which shone brightly in films like Wings, the first film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Therefore, she showcased her versatility in both comedy and drama, with a blend of wit and vulnerability. Becoming a fan favorite became a no-brainer. However, behind the scenes, Clara B's life was ensnarled in scandal. Fueled by the burgeoning tabloid industry of the early 20th century, rumors of her romantic escapades and alleged affairs, including salacious tales involving high-profile celebrities, became fodder for sensationalist headlines. Worse, remember her supposed dalliance with the entire USC football team? These rumors, though often exaggerated, plagued B's public image and posed a threat to her career. Paramount Pictures, B's home studio, recognized the significance of safeguarding her image and protecting their investment. They employed stringent measures to manage her public persona, from orchestrating publicity campaigns that highlighted her wholesome attributes to suppressing unfavorable stories that could tarnish her star status. If you've made it this far, then you must be enjoying today's video. So why don't you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you stay updated with all of our latest content. It will only take you a second. While you're at it, let's take a peek into yet another extraordinary scandal that Hollywood doesn't want you to remember. Number 5. The mystery surrounding Paul Bern's death. In the annals of Hollywood's shocking scandals, few are as shrouded in mystery as the death of Paul Bern in 1932, casting a shadow over the glamorous facade of MGM and its stars. Paul Bern, one of the most prominent film directors in Hollywood history and husband to the luminous Jean Harlow, met a tragic end just 2 months into their marriage. Not so suspicious, right? I mean, it could all be a coincidence. However, the more you dig into the story, the weirder it gets. You see, his lifeless body was discovered at their Beverly Hills home. He had a gunshot wound to the head, and beside him was a note hinting at suicide. It read, "Dearest dear, unfortunately, this is the only way to make good the rightful wrong I've done to you and to wipe out my abject humiliation. I love you." What does that tell you? Suicide? Well, like all of the deaths we've talked about so far, there's more than meets the eye. In 1990, Samuel Marks, a film producer and friend of MGM colleagues Bern and Irving Thalberg, published a book offering a new account of Bern's death. Marks, MGM's story editor at the time, claimed to have visited Bern's house early on September 5, 1932, before the police arrived, and witnessed Thalberg tampering with evidence. The following day, Marks was among studio executives informed by Louis B. Mayer that the death would be classified as suicide due to impotence, to prevent a scandal that could ruin Jean Harlow's career. For MGM, safeguarding the reputation of its rising starlet, Jean Harlow, was paramount. Apart from Mayer's alleged involvement, the studio orchestrated a meticulous public relations campaign to shield her from any insinuation of involvement in Byrne's death. Plus, Harlow's public appearances were carefully curated to convey grief and shock, shielding her from media scrutiny during the tumultuous aftermath. In any case, Marks's investigation led him to believe Byrne was murdered by his estranged common-law wife, Dorothy Millette, who later committed suicide by drowning during a journey from San Francisco to Sacramento on the Delta King. It's weird, isn't it? Here's worse.
I understand that you have a headache.
Oh, it's terrible, Doctor.
Oh, well. How do you...
Number 4, the death of Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd, one of the most talented actresses in early Hollywood, was everything you'd want in a thespian. Charm, talent, elegance, grace. The mythical Thelma had it all. However, her life took a tragic turn when she was found dead under mysterious circumstances in 1935. She was discovered in a garage owned by her lover, Roland West, in a car, and the engine was still running. Initially ruled accidental death due to carbon monoxide poisoning, Todd's demise quickly became fodder for intense media speculation and conspiracy theories. To start with, her body had bruises, including a broken nose, which is hard to self-inflict. This suggests a struggle or an assault prior to her death. Plus, a friend of Thelma Todd reported receiving a phone call detailing the previous night's events, long after the time she reportedly died during the autopsy. And get this, she had peas and carrots in her stomach, which weren't served at the cafe Todd went to. Another compelling piece of evidence is the condition of Thelma Todd's appearance and surroundings on the night of the party. Despite the windy weather, her hair remained perfectly styled. The distance from where she was dropped off to where she was found dead was considerable, involving either a climb of over 270 stairs or a walk through dark, hilly streets. However, her shoes showed no signs of dirt or damage consistent with such a journey. Could she have walked barefoot? I doubt so. Her feet were clean and her stockings undamaged, indicating she didn't do this. Although suicide is plausible, it's hard to believe. All her friends claimed that she was happy. Plus, her car was full of Christmas gifts for friends and family. Accident? Meh, also unlikely. The evidence still doesn't add up. This leads us to the possibility of murder. If so, by who? Thelma Todd's ex-husband, Pat DiCicco, so far remains the number one suspect. Known as both a producer and a mobster with ties to Lucky Luciano, DiCicco and Luciano allegedly sought to establish an illegal gambling parlor at Todd's cafe, a plan she vehemently opposed. It's also worth mentioning that Luciano had a history of abusive behavior towards Todd during a prior romantic relationship. While everything remains hazy to this day, the involvement of organized crime explains the reluctance of Todd's inner circle to publicly disclose details surrounding the tragic events. From the industry's standpoint, however, it was business as usual. Instead of caring much about the circumstances surrounding her death, they were fixated on deflecting any form of negative publicity. Number 3. Patricia Douglas's rape. One of the most heinous crimes to ever go unpunished in Hollywood's history was the rape of Patricia Douglas, a sweet girl betrayed by justice. To date, it's one of Tinseltown's darkest and most concealed controversies, especially among viewers who weren't born in that era. In the late 1930s, MGM was arguably the most influential studio in Hollywood. Almost all of the biggest stars at the time were affiliated with them. Patricia Douglas, however, was not among them. She was a young, aspiring star who lived with her mother. Everything changed when she was invited to participate in what she believed was an upcoming movie. She, along with dozens of other underage women, were brought in to entertain hundreds of salesmen who had gathered in Los Angeles for an MGM convention. There were no lights, camera, or crew, and the women were fitted into skimpy cowgirl outfits. The women were tricked. It was more than just a party. With cigars being tossed around and champagne popping by the minute, the men in the party were drunk to stupor, many assuming the girls in provocative clothing were party favors. Of course, they had no way to defend themselves or run away. That dreadful evening, Douglas, who was 20 years old at the time, was raped by David Ross, a powerful figure. He and another man held her down, poured liquor down her throat, and had their way with her despite her screams and attempts to flee. Willing to fight, she hired an attorney and sued. However, she was turned down by the state court. She couldn't beat MGM's influence. Despite Douglas bravely reporting the assault to the police, making her one of the first women to publicly accuse someone of such misconduct in Hollywood, the studio manipulated medical examinations and police interviews to undermine her credibility and intimidate her. And then came the smear campaign to sully her persona. The studio employed Pinkerton detectives to interrogate individuals and pressure them into lying, alleging that she was promiscuous and had a venereal disease. This was their sole defense strategy. If they could establish her as promiscuous, they believed she couldn't be a victim of rape. This mindset at the time was that promiscuous women can't be raped. The aftermath was devastating for Douglas. Her promising career came to an abrupt end, overshadowed by trauma and obscurity. For decades, her story remained forgotten until author David Sten brought it to light in a Vanity Fair article and later in a documentary titled Girl Number 27. It's truly a nightmare. Apart from the fact that rape was common at the time, it always went unpunished. Remember when Clark Gable made it a routine to sexually assault women? Women were often told that if a rape happened to them, it was their fault, and that they must have somehow provoked it. In that era, women were frequently treated as objects by men, and the movie industry certainly commodified them. On that note, here's another harrowing tale that'll bawl your eyes out. Number 2. Roman Palansky's Scandal. Back in 1973, film director Roman Palansky did the unthinkable, raping a 13-year-old girl named Samantha Geimer during a photo shoot at the residence of actor Jack Nicholson in Los Angeles. But as disturbing as it sounds, the story doesn't end there. According to multiple accounts, Palansky allegedly provided Geimer with drugs and alcohol before sexually assaulting her. According to Geimer's testimony to the grand jury, Palansky had asked Geimer's mother, who was a television actress and model, if he could photograph the girl as part of his work for the French edition of Vogue. Her mother agreed to a private photo shoot, a big mistake. Her account was horrific. Despite her protests, he proceeded with his malevolent intentions. He gave her alcohol, performed oral sex on her, and had his way with her both vaginally and anally despite pleas for him to stop. Here's something that'll rile you up even more. In his autobiography, Palansky described the event, stating that he did not drug Geimer, that she wasn't unresponsive, and that she did not object when he asked if she was enjoying what he was doing. Can you imagine the absurdity? Who in his right mind would ever think of that? To make things worse, the 28-page probation report submitted to the court by Kenneth Fair, his parole officer, and signed by Deputy Irwin Gold, excused his behavior. Instead of holding him accountable, they cited his creative genius and eminent background with different moral standards. They even put some of the blame on the victim and her mother, saying the victim was not only physically mature, but willing. It sounds crazy, but it all happened. It's yet another painful reminder of Hollywood's influence on the justice system and how many women were failed by it. Here's another painful reminder.
You know you're very impudent.
Number 1. Errol Flynn's statutory rape trials. You didn't think we were going to leave out the case of Errol Flynn, did you? Renowned for his charismatic roles in Hollywood classics like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood, Errol Flynn was loved by fans for his savvy persona and smooth talking. However, behind the facade of the daring hero, Errol Flynn led a life that was marred by a series of shocking escapades and scandals. He wasn't just a Hollywood heartthrob. His personal life was fraught with controversy and scandalous affairs, many stemming from his reputation for being a notorious womanizer and heavy partygoer. In 1942, Errol Flynn was enjoying the peak of his adventurous Hollywood career. Over the past decade, the dashing Australian has starred in 26 films, including instant classics like Captain Blood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and The Seahawk. Flynn led a bold and adventurous life marked by a devil-may-care attitude. He worked hard, played hard, and loved passionately. Women everywhere were captivated by his impressive physique, distinctive cleft chin, and charming dimples, making themselves readily available to him. On one hand, he was living the dream, but on the other hand, his wild lifestyle exposed him to numerous issues. At a party in September 1942, Flynn met 17-year-old Betty Hansen, who arrived with a studio messenger and harbored dreams of fame and fortune in moviedom. She drank alcohol with him and even vomited due to an excessive intake. The following day, Hansen told her sister that Flynn had escorted her upstairs to freshen up and then seduced her in a bedroom. But guess what? The DA had already received a similar complaint by Peggy Satterley, who claimed that in August 1941, when she was 15 years old, Flynn invited her to his boat, spiked her drink with liquor, and raped her. Making things more interesting, Flynn's stand-in stuntman, Buster Wiles, claimed that Satterley's father had previously approached Flynn with a demand for money. He alleged that the father threatened to falsely tell police that his underage daughter had engaged in sexual relations with Flynn if he didn't pay up. So you see, both sides presented conflicting accounts. Only the judges could deliver justice. The trial occurred in late January and early February of 1943. The Warner Brothers, keen on protecting one of their star assets, fired on all cylinders to make sure Flynn went unscathed. They hired Jared Geisler, a celebrity lawyer known for getting Hollywood stars out of just about any kind of jam. To be fair, he had a crafty plan. For starters, he attacked the character and morals of the accusers, alleging they were involved in various indiscretions, such as affairs with married men. He also claimed the girls had cooperated with prosecutors in hopes of avoiding prosecution themselves. Recognizing his client's star power, Geisler planned to include as many female jurors as possible in the trial. Fans came out in numbers, filling the courtroom and lining up the hallway, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. In the end, Flynn was acquitted. Beauty, privilege, fame, and hero worship all played a part in the outcome. The only silver lining was that the trial's extensive media coverage and scandalous details permanently tarnished his carefully crafted screen image as an idealized romantic leading actor, despite the best efforts of Warner Brothers. And that concludes our exploration of Hollywood's most scandalous incidents. Throughout history, the industry has often tried to conceal these scandals from the public eye, but now you know better. If you found these stories as intriguing as we did, hit that like button and share which scandal left you the most stunned in the comments. But hold on, before you go, there's more to uncover. Check out the video on your screen now for an even more jaw-dropping revelation about the hidden truths of Hollywood. You don't want to miss it.